Welcome, friends. Today, Christian and I are walking through a conversation shaped entirely by the Masoretic Text and the Textus Receptus. Nothing abstract, nothing philosophical, nothing added later. We want to hear what Yahweh said, how his people responded, and how that same covenant rhythm continues today.
This will be a Q&A journey. You ask the questions, DeClan, and I'll answer from the scriptures. We'll keep everything concrete, measurable, and rooted in Torah, the prophets, Yeshua, and the apostles.
And at the end of each question, I'll give a short summary marker to anchor what we heard. So let's begin with the twofold question that shapes the covenant path. Before we can ever talk about drift or danger, we need to define the covenant path itself, what it looks like, how it functions, and how Yahweh walks with his people. So here's the first question. What are the modern-day markers of the covenant path?
The Masoretic Text and the Textus Receptus show the same covenant rhythm in every generation. Yahweh speaks, his people hear. They walk in his ways, his presence rests among them. None of this ended with the resurrection of Yeshua. The same heartbeat continues in the new covenant assemblies.
So in summary, covenant life is hearing Yahweh, doing what he says and walking in his ways. If Yahweh's path has markers, then drift also has markers. The scriptures never leave this vague or emotional. They give visible indicators when someone's steps begin to shift. So here's the second half of the twofold question. How do we know if we are getting off the path?
The scriptures give clear, concrete warning signs. Not feelings, but measurable indicators. When the people turn aside, the presence withdraws. When they return, he returns.
The Masoretic Text and the Textus Receptus provide objective markers of drift. Now that we've established the twofold question, we step into part one, what it actually looks like to walk the covenant path in daily life. These are not modern ideas. These are the ancient markers given by Yahweh himself.
Part 1. Modern-day markers of the covenant path, as defined by the Torah, the prophets, Yeshua, and the apostles. These markers are not new. They are the unchanging signs of those who walk in Yahweh's ways.
Let's answer this vital question. How does a covenant person hear and do Yahweh's words?
In Deuteronomy 6:4-6, a covenant person listens with the intent to obey. The Masoretic Text never separates listening from doing. In the Textus Receptus, John 14:15, Yeshua affirms the same. Love expresses itself through keeping his commands. Hearing leads to action, and action keeps a person on Yahweh's path.
So in summary, a life that hears and does Yahweh's words is a covenant person. Psalm 19:9 says, "The fear of Yahweh is pure, standing forever. The judgments of Yahweh are true. They are all altogether righteous." Why is the fear of Yahweh essential for staying on the path?
According to Proverbs 9:10, the fear of Yahweh is a humble, reverent posture that shapes daily decisions. It keeps the heart steady and resistant to sin. In Philippians 2:12, the apostles upheld this same posture, showing that reverence is not an old covenant concept. It is the foundation of covenant wisdom.
A reverent heart that guards against forgetting, ignoring, or neglecting Yahweh's words is essential for staying on the path. Deuteronomy 16:20 says, "Justice, justice you shall pursue, so that you may live and possess the land." How do we walk in justice and righteousness, mishpat plus tzedakah, today?
Genesis 18:19 tells us that walking in justice and righteousness means using straight scales, practicing honesty, defending the vulnerable, and maintaining integrity in our dealings. James 1:27 is a clear mirroring passage in the Textus Receptus that echoes Genesis 18:19's definition of practical righteousness and justice. Pure religion is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself unstained from the world. It is visible, practical righteousness, not theory.
James is essentially saying, if you claim covenant devotion but do not practice real-world justice toward the vulnerable, your religion is false. Exactly the same point Yahweh makes about Abraham's household. Micah 6:8 essentially asks, what does covenant loyalty look like in relationships? So what does covenant loyalty look like?
Micah 6:8 is framed as a direct question. What does Yahweh require? Which in Hebrew thought means, what does covenant loyalty look like? And the answer focuses specifically on relational covenant responsibilities, which Micah 6:8 also answers: to do justice, to love hesed, covenant-loyal devotion, and to walk humbly with your Elohim. Matthew 23:23. Justice, mercy, and faithfulness, these you ought to have done. Yeshua was basically saying, woe to you, for you pass over the matters that carry the greatest weight in Yahweh's Torah: mishpat, the straight weighing of a man's deeds; hesed, the loyal mercy that bends down to lift another; and emunah, the steady covenant true walk that holds its path even in headwinds. These are the things you should have done, the stones that make the path straight, without leaving the smaller commands behind. 1 Peter 4:8 says, above all, keep fervent love among yourselves, because love covers a multitude of sins. In ancient Hebrew concrete imagery rendering, 1 Peter 4:8 is saying, above everything else, let ahava stretch long between you, a rope pulled tight, a cord that refuses to snap. For this kind of covenant devotion spreads a covering over many wrongs, like a shepherd throwing his cloak over a wounded sheep to keep the night wind from cutting it deeper.
Steadfast devotion in all covenant relationships. Covenant loyalty is devotion that holds firm in marriage, family, assemblies, and brotherhood. It forgives, protects unity, and keeps promises. Both Micah and Peter teach a love proven through loyalty and consistency. Leviticus 23:1-2 reads, and Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the children of Israel and tell them, the appointed times of Yahweh, which you shall proclaim as holy gatherings. These are my appointed times. How should Yahweh's appointed times be remembered and guarded today? That is not legalism, but covenant identity.
In ancient Hebrew concrete imagery rendering, Yahweh spoke toward Moses, calling him by name, saying, speak to the children of Israel. Tell them this: these are my appointed times, the moments when I stretch out my hand and summon you to gather. These are the days when the camp is to rise and assemble as one people before me, set apart like stones lifted from common soil and placed in my dwelling. When you call the people together in these holy convocations, you are answering my call first, for these appointed moments belong to me. Appointed times. Moadei Yahweh means a set moment, a meeting at a marked place, a gathering called by the Master. In Hebrew thought, these are Yahweh's calendar stones, hammered into the ground of Israel's life to keep the nation walking in rhythm with him. Holy convocations. Mikra-e Kodesh is a summons, a public calling out, not a passive event. Concrete imagery. The blast of a ram's horn, tribes rising from their tents, families drawing near to the fire of Yahweh's presence. These days were not about personal quiet reflection. They were national gatherings before the face of Yahweh. Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 5:8, therefore let us keep the feast, not with old leaven, nor with the leaven of evil and corruption, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. The appointed times of Yahweh were ongoing after Pentecost. 1 Corinthians 12:12-13, whether Jews or Greeks, we were all baptized into one body. And Galatians 3:7-9, 14:29, those of faith are the sons of Abraham. If you belong to Messiah, then you are Abraham's seed, heirs according to the promise. Romans 11:17-24, Gentiles were grafted in among them, and now share in the root and fatness of the olive tree. Gentiles added to Israel's covenant tree, not replacing it, given identity and inheritance joined to Abraham's line, the people of promise. So then Gentiles join in Yahweh's calendar stones.
A calendar shaped by Yahweh, not by Babylon. The appointed times remind Yahweh's people of his works, his deliverance, and his order. They shape our calendar around Yahweh's story, not Babylon's festivals. Yeshua's sacrifice fulfills and deepens these rhythms rather than erasing them. Psalm 24, 3 and 4. Who may stand before Yahweh? Psalm 119, 9. How can a young man keep his way pure? Psalm 15, 1. Who may dwell in your tent? Each asks the same underlying question. What does purity of heart and body look like when lived out?
Psalm 15, 2 through 5 gives a full answer. He who walks blamelessly, does what is right, speaks truth in his heart, does not slander, does no evil to his neighbor, takes no bribe, honors those who fear Yahweh. Here, purity is defined as righteous walking, truthful speech, relational integrity, rejection of corruption, and covenant loyalty. Psalm 24, verse 4, clean hands plus pure heart, Isaiah 33, verses 14 to 16. Ethical purity in action, James 4, verse 8. Hands and hearts purified, Matthew 5, verses 27 to 30. Practical purity of body, and 1 Thessalonians 4, verses 3 to 5. Purity in one's bodily vessel. These give the direct behavioral definition of what purity looks like when lived out on the covenant path.
Clean hands, clean eyes, clean conduct. Purity includes moral integrity, sexual holiness, clean speech, and clean eyes. Yahweh calls his people to purity in body and heart. This is visible holiness, not merely inward sentiment. Acts 2:37. When they heard this, they were cut to the heart and said, "Brothers, what shall we do?" So, what should happen when Yahweh convicts us of sin?
Psalm 32, 5. I will confess, and you forgave. Proverbs 28:13. Confess and forsake. Mercy. Joel 2:12 and 13. Return with a torn heart, not outward show. John 1:9. Confess, forgiveness, cleansing. 2 Corinthians 7:10 and 11. Godly sorrow produces repentance and change. These passages together form the most precise biblical pattern for what should happen when Yahweh convicts us of sin. Honest acknowledgement, heart-level repentance, confession, turning to mercy, to restoration, to renewed obedience.
Quick repentance when Yahweh reveals sin. Repentance should be quick, direct, and honest. When Yahweh reveals sin, a covenant person turns immediately. Return brings restoration. Delay leads to drift. Proverbs 11:30. The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life. Matthew 7:16 to 20. Do people gather grapes from thorns or figs from thistles? A good tree cannot bear bad fruit. Yeshua explicitly asks the fruit question, what shows whether a tree is good or bad? So, what does bearing good fruit look like? What should my life produce if I belong to Yahweh?
John 15:5 through 8. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever remains in me, and I in him, bears much fruit, because apart from me you can do nothing. If anyone does not remain in me, he is thrown out like a branch and withers. Such branches are gathered, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you remain in me, and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. By this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, and show yourselves to be my disciples. Galatians 5:22 and 23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. Rendered in ancient Hebrew concrete imagery, Galatians 5:22 and 23 reads, But the fruit that grows from the Ruach is like a tree heavy with good harvest. Ahava, a covenant-loyal devotion that acts with open hands. Simcha, joy that rises like morning light over the hills. Shalom, wholeness that settles like calm water after the storm. Long endurance, the steady patience of a shepherd watching through long nights. Kindness, the gentle bending of strength to lift the weak. Goodness, the straight, generous path that harms no one. Steadfast trust, emunah that stands firm like a pillar unmoved by wind. Gentleness, the quiet strength that will not break a bruised reed. Self-control, the guarded gate of the inner man, holding the line when desires surge. Against such things there is no boundary or law. For these are the harvests Yahweh himself plants in those who walk his path.
Visible righteousness in daily life. Fruit is the lived-out evidence of righteousness, actions, choices, and patterns. A person's life reveals their root. Fruit is not theory. It is what others can see. Long endurance, the steady patience of a shepherd watching through long nights. How does endurance show covenant faithfulness? Who proves covenant loyalty by enduring?
In the Masoretic Text, endurance is expressed as standing, holding fast, remaining, waiting, or not turning aside. Psalm 37, 7-9. Be still before Yahweh and wait patiently for him. Do not fret over the one who prospers in his way. For those who do evil will be cut off, but those who wait on Yahweh will inherit the land. Isaiah 40:31. But those who wait for Yahweh will renew their strength. They will rise up with wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. Psalm 27:14. Wait for Yahweh. Be strong, and let your heart be courageous. Yes, wait for Yahweh. Matthew 24:13. The one who endures shows true allegiance. Hebrews 3:14. Endurance proves we belong to the Messiah. Revelation 14:12. Endurance is the defining mark of covenant saints. Endurance is the visible proof of covenant faithfulness, the posture that keeps a person steady under pressure, unmoved by the winds that uproot others.
A steady walk that remains loyal in trials. Endurance means refusing to leave Yahweh's path when trouble comes. Hardship tests allegiance. Those who endure demonstrate a heart anchored in Yahweh's nearness. Let's pause here and pick up in our next conversation.